Good morning. Christology upends naturalism, upends nationalism, upends tribalism. There's another ism, an important one, that it upends, and it is the ethical and moral system that emerges from naturalism. But we need to take it separately, and it's the idea known as humanism. There have been many great humanists, people who thought that humanity could sort of in some way quest forward and be a little bit of an end in itself, that man could solve his own problems, that the ingenuity, innovation, creativity, and collective sense of sacrifice within humanity could lead to a greater blossoming civilization, a kind of utopianism that was in view. Well, we look around the world and probably you feel like, well, that doesn't really work, and you would be right. But let me tell you why and how Christology upends that. Christology doesn't upend it because we look around and go, wow, this is a messed up place. Hamartiology, the doctrine of sin, certainly impacts that. But how does Christology itself upend it? Listen to 1 John 3:5. You know that he appeared, talking about Jesus, to take away sins. His intention was to take away sins so that sin would not plague our culture in the same way anymore. Now see, that's not the case right now. Ultimately, it will be. Ultimately, there'll be a whole new civilization that will be the product of the crosswork of Jesus. That is, the convergence of Christology and eschatology yield a kind of society where God in Christ reigns and rules, and we are his citizens because we've been purchased by his blood. He appeared to take away sins. Next part of the verse, you know that he appeared to take away sins, and in him there is no sin. So here's the point. Humanism is done away with because Christ was perfectly obedient as the perfect God-man, yes, 100% man, and in his lawful perfect obedience, he makes it such that that righteousness could be in principle attributed to you in the great transference. He who knew no sin became sin for us, 2 Corinthians 5:21, that we might become the righteousness of God in him. He takes our sin, we get his righteous life. Now, of course, that doesn't mean I'm sinless in how I act. It does mean that as God looks at me, I have a righteousness. I have a perfection in that sense, in the principled sense. And it does mean that secured for me is a kind of future that will be a civilization where sin does not reign. So humanism is not what does away with the effects of sin or the effects of chaos and tragedy. Humanism instead is flawed, and in a way it diagnoses and points to the very thing that only the gospel can solve, and that is the very existence of humanism, the very presence of the idea that we're questing toward a moral ideal, and we can get there as humans, tells us that we all recognize there's a problem that we got to run from. But only Christ deals with that problem. So Christology is over against humanism because perfect men will not bring about a perfect society. Instead, a perfect man did accomplish that on the cross and secure a future for all of those who believe. May the Lord bless you today.